Good evening. This is Professor Rush back again with Oo. He was about to make a decision regarding the explosion and the object that seems to have been left over after that event. But somehow the conversation moved to sex and relationships. I think you will find his description of his species' reproductive anatomy quite interesting. So here is Oo.
Hello, hello. Are you there, John? What's that, Maudie? The connection was broken off?
Yes, the connection was lost momentarily, big boy. Entanglement is tricky near this object.
Before we reconnect, I have an ox fet to disassemble with you. Now, we have to be a little more professional here as we want to set a good example for the crew. Besides, you're new, at least to them, and we don't want them to get the wrong impression. Are you listening there, Maudie?
Am I listening? Am I listening? Can you hear me listening now?
Yes. I understand how you could take that the wrong way. No, no, dear, yes, I don't want the crew to think that you're getting special treatment because I knew you on Stanton 6.
Ha ha ha! You certainly pulled that Vlatmat out of your Vlatmot.
Oh,
Oh,
hello,
hello,
John.
John.
Yes, Vlatmat out of my Vlatmot. Ha 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 ha. Doesn't she have a wonderful sense of humor, John?
Oh, you think that's funny?
Okay, I understand. Let me humble myself before you. I should be whipped, broken on the wheel even. I apologize. The crew apologizes. My parents and their parents apologize.
Oh, I didn't know you cared so much, dear.
Yes, I'm here. So that is your navigator? She doesn't look quite like the first navigator. And did you call at a bad time?
No, no. Yes. Just rehearsing for a play. But you are very observant, John. Now, you remember Sirachnadare. I nicknamed him Puddles. Ha 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 ha. You know, the one who dripped goo all over the place. Well, not only was I able to exchange him for a few knots of, anyway, a few knots, but Maudie as well, if she wanted to come along, of course. Our old navigator opted for another mission. Now, Maudie couldn't wait to get off that rock, along with the fact that we had met before a long time ago on a planet far, far away. Now, I didn't spit on her at first sight.
All right, so we're back to that. That is terribly disrespectful. That can lead to violence in our culture.
Violence? Disrespectful? No, 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 John. I didn't because I wasn't sure she remembered me, and if not, would have thought I was, well, how would you say, here it is, handing her a line. What an interesting way of putting it. Yes, that I didn't mean it and was after some very specific commodity or service. Of course I was, but you can't come on too quickly in these matters. Causes lots of stress, John. You have to get the rules straight, and if you don't, relationships rules just develop on their own, and a lot of these cause a lot of trouble. Difficult to change because they're expected, taken for granted, you know.
Okay, I think I've missed something here. You see, for us to spit on someone, even accidentally, well, that's an insult. Very disrespectful. When fluids are in the body, that's okay, but as soon as we remove them, they become taboo or something evil or contaminated, not to be put back into the body, except blood under special conditions and sperm during the act of procreation. Hack up a big one and spit it in your hand and see how quickly you're willing to put it back in your mouth. Now, different cultures have different taboos.
Oh, no, John. Our what you would call saliva contains chemicals that bond one person to another. And of course, they're chemicals we can produce as an antidote to the bond, if we so choose. And I think Maudie is having some conflict with this, and I perfectly understand. You see, John, she hasn't quite been herself lately. So you can stay bonded to a person forever, or in a general sense, you know where that person is in the whole universe. Now, our data shows that you humans have similar chemicals that can be inhaled and ingested. Let's see. Yes, pheromones. You see, John, we don't have a great deal of feeling in our outer layer, what you call skin. We are, in a way you can understand, bulletproof. One of the purposes of spitting is that the chemicals are rapidly absorbed and create a tingling or even erotic sensation depending on where the chemicals land. And of course, the chemicals are hypoallergenic.
Oh, of course, hypoallergenic. I should have known.
Now, John, certainly there are only a few of us on board this ship who bond like this. Some species like touch. Some like to plug in and, in a sense, see what's on your mind. And some of us, quite frankly, don't bond very well. These are what you would call the robots or cyborgs, both of which have organic components but are programmed to operate on protocol or technical rules only. There's no social life with these members, who are more, well, more machine. But let me clarify, we do have what you call social machines, robots on board, who serve as an interface between us and the more programmed crew. We're all quite different, but we have common goals, and that is seeking knowledge and understanding the universe. So the differences are low on the conversation meter. There are simply more interesting things to talk about. How should I say, packaging or what people look like and software or levels of consciousness and awareness and so on. So there's a lot to talk about besides those basic silly things.
So, what exactly is your relationship with Maudie, your navigator?
Hmm, do you mean are we simply crewmates? No, John. From what I've told you, I've bonded with Maudie. Now I understand that your species promotes male-female bonding through visual signals, touch, and as well as the chemicals with the goal to having sex and furthering your species. Most of your cultures, according to the data, promote something called marriage, where the opposites of your species get together as a reproductive unit, the children from which permanently bind the two families involved, and sometimes many significant others as well. Well, John, marriage of this type for producing offspring is very rare among us. The reason for this is quite simple. Most of us, unless through accident or disease, live a long time, John. At some point, your scientists will learn how to, shall I say, modify the aging clock. You can't totally stop it because that defeats the natural laws of the universe, but you can slow it up considerably. Over the course of many millions of years, we have evolved a reproductive strategy very different from yours. My opposite, what you would call a female, might become receptive to fertilization every 50 or 100 years or so. I'm thinking Maudie might be coming forth. Anyway, our females, and I'm speaking of my species, have two what you would call vaginal canals. Both can be used for what you call pleasure, but they serve two purposes. You human and our species endoskeletons are very similar in many ways because they support bipedalism or upright walking. And the vaginal openings are in a similar place. Now, this is what's really different. One of the openings serves to feed the female what I will call male sperm, although it's more than that, for storage and nutrients. Sperm can be stored for hundreds, if not thousands of years by a healthy female, but it's always best to renew the supply. Also, if she needs nutrients, she can call on this perfect supply for her through reabsorption. The other vaginal orifice only becomes active every 50 years or so. And when the female's hormones change in that direction, she becomes very, shall I say, seductive, possessive, even spiteful and irrational, at least in our minds. And if sperm enters that vaginal canal, impregnation will occur. Now, Maudie may be getting to that, and this becomes a test for me. You have to resist if you want to stay on your chosen path, John, for if you enter into that orifice with full intent, you will then be married to a female partner who is now with your child. At that point, you and your partner would be whisked away to some safe, beautiful place where you will act as loving parents and teachers of this child, sometimes twins, for perhaps 50 or 100 years. This is considered a great honor to be a teacher to one who will come forth into the universe. You folks practice abortion. You throw away life like you're picking weeds. I cannot recall in our history any evidence of abortion. The new one, the knocked down, is taught to think, to explore, to reach his or her highest level of excellence, and to be decent to other species, and to each other certainly, unless they're trying to hurt or kill you. Remember what the great Nundor said. I always thought I was more important than that which is trying to kill me. We learn this at an early age. The great Nundor also said, walk forth prepared. Now, can I tell you a little side story here, John?
Well, yes, as long as it's appropriate. I will censor you, remember. I have this big red button over here.
Hmm, big red button. Oh, I get it. Well, you haven't exactly lost your sense of humor after all. Not very sophisticated, though, John. Anyway, there is this wonderful story about this couple who were whisked away to a foreign paradise to have and raise their child. Although the place was beautiful, idyllic, a paradise, there were monsters troubling the community. And once in a great while, one of these lion-like monsters would attack someone, perhaps while walking in the garden or by the nearby stream. This one day, John, while they were walking in the woods not far from the stream, beautiful stream with little waterfall, minnows darting here and there, puffy white clouds in the sky, they were attacked. But with great chivalry, the man tore off his left arm and beat the monster to death. And ever since that time, John, he understood the sound of one hand clapping.
That is so lame. I'm embarrassed.
Well, John, you have limited my range of jokes, my repertoire. So these are all that are left. Here I stand a ruined comedian, thanks to you. Name in lights. Could have made the big time. But getting back to our discussion, I can't say that I know anyone of my species. And again, I don't know of anyone of my species who has impregnated a female. You see, this is a major test for the male, to be able to resist what you might compare to the sirens encountered by Ulysses. I went through this some centuries back. I know what to expect. And John, it will be hell if Maudie, as we call it, comes forth. I have thought for a long time now that perhaps our species has stopped reproducing altogether. Now, don't get me wrong, John. This is a great honor to raise a child. This is broadcast all over the universe. I personally don't desire such an honor and would rather stay here as humble Oro. Also, this isn't orgy in outer space. This is not the counterpart to the Mile High Club. We are a bunch of species, what you might see as tribes, cooperating in a common quest. That is, to find out what we are experiencing is really all about.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that in a tasteful manner anyway. So, what about male male or female female? How should I say this? Pleasure sharing or bonding?
Yes, female female bonding. Very much so. You see, John, this is what the storage of what you call sperm is all about. If females of our species get abandoned, and this must have happened often in our early evolution and certainly in our early days of exploration, those many years ago, they could share the sperm sexually and then could impregnate each other, or one female could impregnate herself. Women of our species, although highly territorial of their sperm sources, form strong bonds. As the great Nundor once said, immortality begins with the female and is sustained by the male, for no life enters this universe except through her. So you can see the responsibility placed on the parents. The male can't walk away from this, but on the other side, he's always in the adult female, ready to spring forth and protect that from which he came. You have many myths, Mayan and Greek, for example, that represent this idea very well. Life is very precious to us. Now, some species clone without the need for information from another source, although it's usually the case that the more intelligent species share information between opposites, what you call male and female. There are more advantages to this, as you have discovered.
What about male-male interaction?
Hmm, male, male. Difficult to envision that. Let me do a quick scan of the history. No, no, nothing there. I suppose if I showed you my genitalia, you would understand. But don't get excited, John. I'm not going to do that, as that behavior is reserved for perverts and senators. Anyway, we may spit on each other for bonding purposes, but that's as far as it can possibly go. Imagine, if you will, a corkscrew with a very, very hard tip. There's just no place to put the male genitalia except into the female, or perhaps a large wine bottle.
Okay, okay, very graphic. So, what happened to the sphere?
Yes, the sphere. Well, it isn't a sphere like we first thought, as it created a bit of an illusion. As you can see, it is actually bell-shaped, and it's been sending out some low-level radiation, which is, interestingly, decreasing. We probed the interior, and this is a very interesting whatever it is. Its technology, or the knowledge here of organic composites which form the outer layer of this object, is quite advanced. And at first we suspected this was an antimatter generator or storage unit, likely designed to open that wormhole in the near future. But what it appears to be is a transport unit. I mean, there was something inside this object. This object came through the wormhole, and something in it departed from this object very, very soon thereafter. It poses no immediate threat. It now probably acts as a beacon, a fixed coordinate to which the object will most likely return.
Any thoughts as to what was in this object?
Yes, it must have been some sort of what you call a ship. Now, this object is relatively small. Our ship would not fit inside it, although it is about a mile across. Inside this object, there appears to be a type of organic foam residue designed to surround the ship many meters thick, or whatever was in there, and protect it during its passage through the wormhole. We are trying to compute the origin of the wormhole, but this may not be possible because too much time has passed.
Sensors are picking up an object moving toward us, dear.
This may be the ship coming back. Back out of visual range of the object, Maudie, then magnify the screen. Going to have to go, John. This may be the cause of the interference Maudie was detecting. They intercepted our signal and know the origin and probably its destination as well. You folks.